This is the ultimate guide on how to create a cooperative advertising program. But first, why should you trust me? Well, I'm working with Computer Market Research, and we worked with all these different companies, been in the business for the past 40 years. We've consulted with these businesses on how to improve their co-op programs. We've also built software through Partner Portal to help them streamline this process. So we believe we have knowledge that can help you. And we genuinely want to help you. We want to help you make a better program. And so just to get this out of the way, what is Co-op MDF? What is a co-op program? Well, basically, a co-op program is a partnership between manufacturers and their partners, where manufacturers will give funds to their partners to place joint advertising featuring both brands. So an example of this is Coca-Cola and Walmart. Coca-Cola, the manufacturer, will give some money to Walmart so that Walmart can take Coke's branding and place a TV ad featuring both brands. Walmart gets more foot traffic without spending the full cost of advertising. Coca-Cola gets more brand awareness and they get more of their products sold. It's a win-win for both parties. So on that note, how do you create a program? Well, there's a 5-step process, and the first step is to create a reimbursement system. This is basically how and when the money is given. And there's 3 main ways. The first is an accrual-based system where you give out co-op funds. So this is basically a percentage of the revenue that the partner has that will be given in funds to them. So let's just say you agree to a 3% accrual. That means that for every $10,000 worth of products your partner sells, they'll get 3%, which would be $300 worth of funds for advertising that you would give them. The advantages of this are that it's simple and that it directly motivates your partners to sell more products. But the cons of it is that it can be, accounting-wise, kind of difficult because you have to continually set aside more and more funds, which can sometimes be a headache. The next type of reimbursement system is MDF or market development funds. This is where rather than the funds being given over time, they're given upfront. So like in that previous example, rather than $300 being given over time after something has already been sold, $300 would be given upfront. Because at the end of the day, if a product isn't doing that well, co-op funds and accrual-based system wouldn't really help that product because it's not really going to sell that much in the first place. But MDF funds, on the other hand, can give that a jump to help that product do better. But this is exactly where the main disadvantage comes from, because that same funds could be easily wasted, meaning that your funds go straight down the toilet. It's like a hitter going up to the plate. You see, I got the Dodgers jersey, swinging and missing. They could either hit a home run or they whiff. And the third type of reimbursement system is a performance-based system, which is a combination of the other two. And the advantages of this are that it can be more streamlined, it can be more effective at motivating your partners, but the main disadvantage is that it can be kind of complicated. And as we'll go over later, one of the main roadblocks of co-op programs are that they're too complicated. Partners just don't know what to do, they don't know how to use their funds, and those funds go wasted. And so the next step to create an effective co-op program is to set your program's timelines. This is basically when things are done. Because just like in any effective system, you've got to know when things are going to happen. And so the first deadline you want to establish is an offer period. This is the timeline in which your program is offered to partners and they can either accept it or reject it. Basically, you would send out an email, you would send out a newsletter, you would send out some mail, maybe you'd call them up and you'd say, hey, we have this program. And you have to accept it or not. It's on the table. Usually this is 4 to 6 weeks. And ideally, you don't want it to be so short that you don't get all the partners who could possibly do it. But you also don't want to be so long that your partners drag their feet and don't actually accept it. The next timeline you want to establish is an accrual period. Now, this is only if you have a program that does have funds that accrue over time. But how long would you like this period to be? It could be either 1 month, a quarter, a year. It completely depends on your program and what you want to do. Just bear in mind that the longer it is, the more complicated it could possibly be, But the shorter it is, the less likely you're able to really motivate your partners to get that accrual money. And on that same note, the next timeline to establish is a spend period. This is kind of self-explanatory, but this is just when your partners can spend the funds. And usually this is anywhere between 90 to 180 days. This is so that your partners just aren't leaving money on the table, and it's not just waiting ad nauseum, waiting for something to happen. You can kind of get your partners motivated to spend it while also giving them enough time to plan accordingly. But what happens if your partners don't spend the funds during this period? Well, this is where a carryover period comes into play. Because this is basically when your partners will be given the opportunity to spend their funds after the period has ended. Typically, this is anywhere between 30 to 60 days, or you could just not have it entirely. That's also something we've noticed about some vendors' programs. The next timeline is an advertising deadline. Once they've spent the funds, how long after must that ad be run? Typically, this is anywhere between 30 and 60 days, sometimes under, sometimes a little bit more. Ideally, you want this to be as quick as possible, but also logistically, we understand not everything can happen immediately. Things take time, so just plan accordingly. And just work with your partners on this. Your partners aren't the enemies, they're your partners. You gotta work with them. And last, but definitely not least, is setting your submission deadline. So your partners have requested the funds. Your partners have spent the funds. Your partners have run the ads. Your partners maybe even went past the deadline and are in the carryover period. Now, how do they submit the documentation to you so that they can get reimbursed for what they've spent? Good question. This is where the submission deadline comes into play. After they've done all these things, how long after must they submit this, give you all the documentation, blah, 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 all that fun stuff, and then you have the opportunity to accept it or say, hey, we need you to get some revisions. And we'll talk more about that later. But the next step to create an effective co-op program is to establish your allowed activities. Activities are basically the allowed advertising activities that your partners can run. This could be traditional advertising, digital advertising, or events. I'm just going to run you through the most common activities, their advantages and disadvantages, and what you should request from your partners so that they can submit documentation proving that they ran these ads as planned. So first, we have print ads. This is newspaper ads. This is magazine ads. And basically, the advantages of this are that it reaches a broad audience. But the disadvantages are that these mediums are typically dying out. They're not as popular as other mediums, as we'll talk about. And the documentation that you want to get from your partners proving that they ran these ads as planned are that you want to get an invoice from the newspaper publisher. You want to get a little cutout showing the actual ad. You could get this faxed or emailed to yourself, however you want. And you want an estimated number of viewers from the newspaper. And these are official numbers. You can't just fudge these numbers. So make sure you get all these things for print ads. The next is digital advertising. And this is so broad. This could be Facebook, this could be LinkedIn, this could be Instagram, this could be Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it these days. But the process for all these is basically the same, where you can get a link of the ad. You can get specific performance analytics from the ad publishers. So like their click-through rate, their impressions, their views, blah, 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 all that good stuff. And you can get an invoice from the publisher showing how much it costs. The next is outdoor ads. These are billboards. And so what you want to get is that you want to get a picture of the advertisement, preferably at different times of the day. And you also want to get documentation from the billboard company of just an invoice of how much it costs and the estimated number of foot traffic or people around that would be able to see this billboard. The next are broadcast ads. These are TV ads, radio ads, but regardless of the medium, the process is the same. You want to get a notarized script from the company showing what was ran, what happened. You can also get an estimated number of viewers, and you can get an invoice. The next is event sponsorship. These are conferences, trade shows. And the process for this is a little bit different. You want to get pictures of the booth, yes, but you also want to get estimated number of people who walk in. And if you can, try to have some sort of QR code or some sort of method of tracking performance. How many people took your business cards at the booth, for example. And you also want to get an invoice on how much all this cost. And just bear in mind that for all of these advertising activities, if they use an agency to help them make the ad, make sure you get an invoice from that agency too. So to put it another way, you're going to get an invoice from the company that published the ad, and you get an invoice from the agency that made the ad. That way, you know who you're paying, you know why you're paying it, and you just want to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And like we briefly touched on earlier, you want to have a strong approval process. And basically, this is just how you approve that your partners ran the ads as they said they would, and that everything just runs smoothly. So, like I already mentioned in the last section, make sure that you're getting all this documentation from your partners when they run these ads, just so they know what the rules are. And so on that same note, make sure that they do know what the rules are. Have a document showing what they are. Have training videos showing what they are. Assign a channel manager within your own team who will directly communicate with your partners, making sure they know what's up. And if they have any questions, they can easily access you. And make sure you're sending out regular reminders. Now, you could do that by just sending them manual emails and tracking on a spreadsheet, but if you'd like to make it easier, we offer Partner Portal, which is our software that helps manufacturers and their partners streamline their Co-op MDF systems. And it will just send out automatic reminders. You can also have a dashboard. You can have a real-time audit trail, and you can view everything Co-op MDF in one place. It just makes it so much easier. We're trusted by all these companies. If you'd like to check out a free demo, the link's below. Anyways, you also want to have a right to audit clause in the contract that you give your partners to sign. And this is important for the next section, which is auditing and proof of performance. And so let's just say your partners submit all these ads, they give you all this documentation, but you notice something fishy. You notice that something isn't right. There's something weird going on. They didn't give specific documentation. Maybe you feel like they're fudging the numbers. Well, this is where you would actually audit your partners. And ideally, at minimum, even if you don't notice anything weird going on, you want to audit your partners at least once a quarter, once a year. You just want to make sure that your partners are doing everything correctly and you can identify room for improvement. And that's about it for this one. Hope it helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Check out Partner Portal and check out our other videos. Have a nice day. Bye.